Hi, I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching accesstv.org.
Second. Good morning, and welcome back to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner on this very, very cold morning in February, the second week in Black History Month. Today, we're going to take a journey. Sometimes, I talk to some people and we say, yeah, we were slaves and they did this to us and they did that. But for some reason and somehow, I really do not think that there's anything behind the word slavery. So we're going to just take a trip and we're going to talk about Frederick Douglass. I know many of you have heard about Frederick Douglass, especially if you're grown. Some young people may not have heard of him, but we're going to talk about him for a little bit. But first, we're going to set the scene. I'm going to sit down and kind of relax. And we're going to go back. I want you to use your memory and think about a day when you could not do what you wanted to do, when you had to get up. And some of our relatives and family remember a little bit about this, not of slavery, but of the fact that getting up before dawn and going out to the fields and working there until dusk, till nightfall, and coming back. Why do you think they made them big breakfasts and those big dinners that we have to kind of calm down with now? Because they needed that energy to work in those fields. They tell you when to come, when to go. And we knew it was just a little thing that might have sold you off to somebody else. And you had to leave your mom and your dad. And maybe you would never see them ever again. And if you was too bad, they may whoop you. Beat you what do you call it? I want to say strap, but a whip. Punishment was severe if you didn't listen to your master. So there you are. Just a little thing. Got to grow up without your mom and your dad and your sisters and your brothers. And you have to do everything. You can't go anywhere. I want you to understand you can't do anything unless the master tell you to do it. You might have a few scars on you now for when you was punished. Okay, we're gonna read a little bit about a little boy who was kind of just like that, and his name was Frederick Douglass. But he grew up to be a mighty powerful man. They say the greatest orator in America at that time. But it wasn't easy. He struggled, but he stayed the course. And I'm going to read you about something. You're not going to believe what they asked him to do. But let me give you some information. Frederick Douglass was born a slave in 1817 and raised by his grandmother on a Maryland plantation until sent to work at age 8 in Baltimore. There, with the help of his new master's wife, he began to educate himself, an activity forbidden by law. In 1838, he escaped and settled in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and began working for the anti-slavery cause. It was not long before he was the nation's leading Black abolitionist and one of its most brilliant orators. He grew up to be mighty fine. Now, let me tell you just one thing before we continue. If you ever think, and I know sometimes we see some stories of some of those good days the slaves had. Maybe they had some good days between themselves, but there wasn't no good days. There's no good days for a slave because you property. And the master might grin and talk softly to you some days, but he still owned you. You still had to do what he said, and he still whip you if you got out of hand or you got too mouthy. And he didn't mind at all calling you a nigger or whatever else he pleased to call you. Well, I do say he, but the mistress and the master and anybody else in their household. Okay? I want to get that kind of straight. Because sometimes we get kind of mushy. Oh, he was a good master. He still was a master. He still was a master. Okay. Well, we're going to continue with Frederick Douglass. You're not going to believe in 1852, having been invited to deliver an Independence Day address in Rochester, New York, Douglass seized the occasion to hold a scorching iron. Now, why is that significant? This is a Black man. And they asked him to give the address for their holiday, for their Independence Day, a Black man in 1852. Do you realize slavery was still going on in 1852? His people were still in slavery. And they're asking him to give an address for the 4th of July, Independence Day. So him thinking, like a lot of us might think, they want me to give this? Now, this is just Miss Cleo's interpretation. They want me to give the address for the 4th of July? Are they kidding? Okay. If they want an address, I'll give them an address. So he starts like this. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles, political freedom, and a national justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. He is speaking, and he has just told them off in some kind of way. And he goes on to insult them, but did they understand? I don't really know. I'm sure they did. But such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children of sorrow this day, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth to forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason, most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world. Well, doesn't he use words wonderfully? Sometimes we got to look up some of the words he used. But he is not. He could have went in there and gave a wonderful 4th of July speech and had all the people cheering and forgetting that he was a Black man whose people were in chains. He could have forgot that. No. Sometimes we have some leaders who forget that today. Go out there and sing praise and carry on. Forget all about us. Frederick Douglass was not like that. He never forgot his people and never forgot that he had an opportunity to be up there speaking. And his people didn't have that opportunity. He was the one that had to tell it like it was. Because if he didn't tell it like it was, who would? Who else? How many other Black men stood up like Frederick Douglass and had the opportunity as Frederick Douglass to speak on behalf of the Black man and the Black people? He did us proud. And I started saying, you must learn about him. But you should learn about him. He was one of our wonders, one of our great men, and he should never be forgotten. And now I have to stop and go to commercial. So we're going to stop and go to commercial. And I'll see you in just a moment. Be right back.
Black History Month. We pause to acknowledge and appreciate contributions enriching our cultural and intellectual fabric. Keep it coming.
We are the members of the Saturday Boston Dance Theater, and we celebrate Black history 365 days of the year.
The folks at Cull Books in Hartford want to remind parents, kids need to exercise the most important muscle in their body, the brain. How do you do that? Read. What happens? Well, let me tell you. The imagination soars, the creativity blossoms, the world opens up, and the need to be entertained by outside forces diminishes. Don't believe me? Try it. You won't be sorry. And in time, either will your kids. Talbot cares about your child's literacy. Join Miss Cleo every week on Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner online at accesstv.org. Welcome back to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner. We're at the point now that Frederick Douglass, all that other stuff was fluff, as he's getting ready to give his address. And he says, "My subject then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view, standing there identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine. I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declaration of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly blinds herself to be false to the future. Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce with all the emphasis I can command everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. Am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow man, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with iron, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employment for my time and strength than such arguments would imply. What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine, that God did not establish it, that our doctors of divinity are mistaken? There is blasphemy in the thought. That which is inhuman cannot be divine. Who can reason on such a proposition? They that can may, I cannot. The time for such argument is past. At a time like this, scorching iron, not convincing argument is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could I reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke, for it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not gentle showers, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The prosperity of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. What to American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice, the cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgiving, with all your religious parades and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Frederick Douglass. When I was reading that and reading about other Americans, it became more and more important to me that it must not be forgotten. Our children must, and I tell you, parents and all adults must learn their history, because if they do not, they will deem to repeat the same. They do not know their heritage. Slavery is just that much of our history, that much of our heritage. Our heritage are centuries and centuries old. We need to know that. It is important. And you know why. Look around us. Look around and see that we have lost a lot of the fire that stands with Frederick Douglass and so many others. Where's the fire? We had a lot of fire in the 60s, yeah. We thought we were doing one thing, but it kind of didn't work for us quite the way we wanted it to work for us. We know that. But we need to turn it around. And we need to start talking about our history and about who we are. You see, if you don't know who you are, if you don't have a definition of who you are, then somebody else gets all that space for them to tell you who you are. Since you don't have a definition, let somebody else tell you who you are. And if you have no other definition, what else is there? And it's our parents, not the teachers at school, our parents and our seniors in our families, in our communities. They're the ones that need to tell us all about them stories. Like my father used to tell me. He said, he kind of said, yeah, gal, we used to do this and we used to do that. And we used to go out in the field and I used to go and shoot horses and so many things. And as I told you the story or read the book last week of Prudence Crandall, those little girls who went to that school, they did a lot before they got to that school. More than we ever thought of knowing and doing. And those are the things that built the country. Oh my goodness. You built the country. Did you know that? Oh, that was a shh. That was a secret. Nobody told you built the country. Well, you got to get out there and do it yourself. I was in church school last week teaching. And I said, every week someone had to, the pastor said, tell something about African American history. Oh, I was all excited. I brought all these books to the church so the children could go home and study about the people in African American history. You know what they said to me? You know what someone said to me? We don't need that. Because you know what we have? We have Martin Luther King. I said, I know about Martin Luther King. I don't need to read that book. I said, but there were so many others. Oh, that's all right. We know Martin Luther King and we know Rosa Parks. Do you know how long our history is? Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks were great people and stood up like Frederick Douglass. But they aren't the only people. There are people today standing up. Maybe we don't recognize them. We need to come and learn about us. Children, learn about you. Learn about yourself. I want to say something, but I will say it because learn about yourself. Pull up your pants. Pull down your dresses. Learn about yourself and your history and how beautiful and wonderful you are. If no one has ever told you that, Miss Cleo was telling you that. You are wonderfully and beautifully made. You are the heart of America. You built America. And don't let anybody tell you different. You didn't get the money. You didn't get to reap the rewards, but you built the country. Be proud of all your heritage. Learn about it. Learn about us. Now it's time for me to go again. Because if I had to stay here, my goodness, I would stay here all night and I would talk to you all night and you would say, oh, please, Miss Cleo. I know. That's what they said Sunday. Oh, please, Miss Cleo. Well, Miss Cleo's going to stop now. Until next week. But it would be nice if you just read about one thing. One thing a week in your own history, whether it's Black History Month or not. Come up to the bookstore at Cult Books, 677 Blue Hills Avenue. We got a lot of books to tell you about your history. And don't forget the Hartford Public Library, they got a lot of books too. Tell you about your history. Go find them. Search them out. Well, now I have to say goodbye before I go overtime. So I'll see you next week. And you remember, read a little, write a little, dream big. I'll see you next week.